I was recently part of a project to digitize the Peacock Room at the Freer Gallery of the Smithsonian Institute. The digitization took the form of a 360-degree panoramic image that you could view online, and that's what you're looking at right now. You may have seen similar things on real estate sites. For the next few minutes, I'd like to give you an overview of how one of these 360-degree panoramic images can be constructed and put online. In order to create one of these 360-degree panoramas or panos, I've broken it down into essentially three steps or phases. And the first step is photography. So this is when you're going to go and take pictures of the space or landscape that you want to turn into a 360-degree panorama. The second phase is stitching. This is where you take the photos that you've created and you're going to use some software that's going to stitch these individual photos together into one big panoramic image. And then the last stage is publishing or sharing. And this is where you're going to take that one big image, put it into some other software that's going to shape it into one of these interactive 360-degree panoramas that you can then share online. When it comes to doing the photography, you actually have a few options available to you. One option is to buy one of these special lenses featured here, and there's a whole bunch of them out there. And these lenses mount to an SLR camera, and they essentially take a picture of a mirror. And this mirror takes in the entire room, and you capture the entire room in one photograph. Then there's special software that comes along with it that reinterprets that image so that it makes sense and becomes essentially a 360-degree view of the room. You could also get a fisheye lens and use that to take single pictures of the different walls in the room that you're trying to capture as a 360-degree image. But in my experience, both of those methods end up with a lower quality end product. And so I chose to go a different route, and I'll talk about that right now.
Here's a setup that I used when I digitized the Peacock room. I'm doing it in a different room here, but it's basically the exact same. I'm going to utilize a camera on a tripod, and I'm going to take several photos of the room. The first thing is setting the tripod up in the center of the room, or as close as you can get. Next, you should use a panoramic tripod head if you can. What this does is it allows you to rotate the camera around the optical center of the lens so you don't get any weird parallax in your image. If at all possible, shoot using a remote control. This is going to greatly cut down on the amount of vibration that the camera suffers, and your images will be much, much sharper. And now we see the process. I'm using the panoramic tripod head to take a picture essentially every 10 degrees, and that way I'll end up with 36 pictures total that I will then stitch together to create the panorama.
After we're done with photography and we have all of our images, then the next step is to stitch them all together. In order to stitch your photos together into one seamless panoramic image, you're going to need some software. Now, if you own Photoshop, it does have a photo merge option under the file menu that you could use to do the stitching. Or you could look to other products such as what I'm using, which is AutoPano Giga. It's a commercial solution, a commercial image stitcher. And or if you're interested in a free alternative, you could look for a product called Hugin, Hugin, which is an open source image stitcher. Now, regardless of what you use, they all sort of work the same. You're going to select your images, and then the software is going to take those images and find where they overlap and stitch them and merge them together. So in AutoPano, all I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this Select Images option. It's actually defaulted to where I have my 36 images that I took. I'm going to select those. Open. They open here in a preview panel. You can see that they're all there. And then I'm just going to run this detect option. And what this is doing now is analyzing the 36 different images to find out where they overlap and how it can stitch and merge those together into a panoramic image. And then it's just going to go ahead and do that. Now, depending on the product you have, they can do some fancy things. This particular product actually will auto-correct for the lens you're using, and gives you a lot of editing options. So if I go up here to the edit, I can see my panoramic image. So you see it took all of our individual images, stitched it together into one bigger image. A little bit easier to see here. And it actually looks pretty good. But if there are problems with it, there's a whole slew of tools available to you in this software to sort of correct the image. One thing I do suggest is to use the auto cropping function up top, which is what I'm going to do here, and it'll just cut out any extra white space that might be in that image, which is undesirable for our finished panorama. And when we're happy with that, we just go to the render panorama, and it gives us a bunch of different options on how we can render it. And it'll just give us one big JPEG image that we then use in our next step. Our last step is publishing or sharing. And this is where we're going to take that finished panoramic image and put it into some software that's going to turn it into one of these interactive 360-degree experiences. Much like doing the stitching, creating the panoramas, we have a lot of options available to us in terms of the software that we want to use. This particular product is called Pano 2 VR, and it's the same software that I used to create the 360-degree panorama of the Peacock Room. But there's other products out there. For instance, the software I used to do the stitching, AutoPano, they created a product called Pano Tour, and it does essentially the same thing. But regardless of which software you're using, they all sort of work the same. They're going to take that one big panoramic image and turn it into one of those interactive 360-degree panoramas. To do that, I'm going to select my panorama, tell it OK. It finds my panorama, it modifies it, and then I just have to tell it what format I would like to publish it in from there, and I get some different options, Flash and QuickTime and HTML5. I'm going to stick with Flash because it's a format that a lot of web browsers support, or most web browsers have the Flash plugin. I'm going to add that, and it gives me some options that I can change, including outputting an actual HTML file, and I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And then we can see our finished page as it would appear on the web. Now, this is just a template a real basic template that the software exports, but we could take this and embed it in any web page. And that's really all there is to it, to creating one of these panoramas. I know I simplified it a little bit, but I hope you get the general idea. I like to think of it that it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Just shoot it, stitch it, and share it. And please refer to the handout that's accompanies this video for tips and a recap of the information that we covered in this brief tutorial. Thanks for listening.